13 mass shootings happened over the weekend in that country, leaving more than 16 people dead and 70 injured. Those shootings took place in a variety of different events and settings, according to the Gun Violence Archive. The U.S. has suffered at least 246 mass shootings this year alone, on pace to match or surpass last year's total, which was the worst on record. Many of the recent shootings in the U.S. as seen throughout the country have been linked to racism. And wrongingly enough, the U.S. is seeing increasing number of racially motivated acts of gun violence. Douglas Sloan, vice president of the NAACP, claims the U.S. roots in systemic racism are to blame for the uptick in violent race crimes we see today.
Does the mass proliferation of guns in the United States allow people that perpetrate hate crimes to be more deadly? Absolutely. It also allows people that have mental and psychological issues to be more deadly. So, it goes both ways, and again comes back to the same problem that this country has. If you have unfettered access to weapons of mass destruction and weapons of war, then when you go out to perpetrate violence against people or a particular community, you will be that much more efficient and that much more effective at perpetrating that violence. And of course, you will be that much more deadly. Trump was very, very negative towards Asians in particular. And many people, many of his supporters from some of those states that were called red states here that voted Republican, many white people took up that mantle of hatred towards Asians, the COVID pandemic, of racial animus and violence toward Asians. And Trump seemed to spur that on. So I can see how that became a real, I understand and I see how that became a real problem here in the United States and some, to a lesser extent, at other countries around the world. And obviously Trump was not doing anything to it. Thankfully, he is no longer our president, and hopefully we can move away from that. This country was founded on the institution of slavery. Remember, we're a very young republic. Only the Constitution ratified some 200 some odd years ago. The first settlers arrived on these shores in the 1600s. So we're very young, but this country got the jump on everyone because we had the free labor of slavery to mine all of these countries' resources. And then, of course, you cannot forget about the mass genocide of the Native Americans that were here when the European settlers, air quotes here, the nicest way I can put that word, the mass genocide of the Native Americans that were here. So, we really have a foundation of institutionalized racism in this country against Blacks, against Hispanics, against Native Americans, and to a slightly lesser extent against Asians that exists to this day. We see it in our institutions with our criminal justice system and how it treats Blacks and Hispanics and other minorities differently than it treats whites. We see it in our educational system with different outcomes for white children in comparison with Black and Hispanic children. We see it within our real estate system with redlining of certain neighborhoods that are only supposed to be for white people. So we see institutionalized and systemic racism in this country to this day. And it is one of this country's greatest challenges to be able to deal with the racism that is still alive and thriving in modern day society.